Hey, Chrissy here. I am a landscape architect and the owner of Kismet Design. I am a very process-driven designer, and I love sharing what I do and how I do it with anyone who's interested. Reaching your true potential and achieving your own personal goals will not happen by chance. You have to set your intentions, make a plan, and do the work. Thank you for joining me to nerd out on design. Don't forget to subscribe and to share too. Let's create something great together. I am really excited today to welcome Kevin Monohan to the podcast. He is the owner of Avalon Northwest, a landscape construction company based in Seattle. He works closely with designers in the area to bring their designs to life. He and his team are an uber talented group of craftsmen with some really amazing work. I get the chance today to pick his brain on the perspective of a contractor, on the super valuable relationship between a contractor and a designer, and how that brings projects to life and how that develops the best possible outcome and experience for clients, which is what we're all after anyways. Kevin and his team are very talented and have the fantastic opportunity to work with some really brilliant designers. And Kevin himself has a really good, very strong design background as well. And so the projects that they work on are truly magnificent. So be sure to check out his website. So to start, I would love for you to share your background in the industry and the evolution of your business from design build to getting into build only.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Yes. I started out as just doing build. So I went through degree, and then I came to Seattle and started working for somebody else. And we just built landscapes for other designers. We ended up starting a partnership, me and my foreman from this first company in Seattle. We started a company together, called it Avalon, and we were just building other people's designs as one crew for about 4 years or so before I felt confident enough to do my own designs. So then we split up into two crews. I ran a design build portion of the company, and he kept, my partner Keith Jellerson kept building with other designers that we knew. And we did that for 10 years before we split up. He went his way, going to the east side, doing the same thing. And then I bought Avalon from him, and both crews wanted to stay with me. So I had these two crews to keep busy. This is in 2013, the fall of 2013, and it was very scary. But I just become a part of APLD about a year earlier. And so I started working the relationships I was building then. And luckily, jobs start falling in, and I stayed busy doing that for, until now. We went down to one crew a few years ago, and now we're just one crew now. Like, we're not trying to grow or anything. We're just trying to make sure that the people who are working with Avalon are making money in Seattle, which isn't easy. And we've built ourselves up into a spot where we can do really big jobs that make money. And so even though we're a very small company now, we remain profitable. So lucky.
Going from two crews to one, do you find that makes it so that you can provide a better product, being more involved and not having to split yourself in two different directions?
Absolutely. The biggest thing was it improved my quality of life, because I was, raising a family, but also spending all my time, especially when I was doing design build. That was more work doing design build than it was building for two crews. It's just the hand holding of the clients was a whole lot of work. And a lot of it happened late at night when I wasn't working on the projects. And so not a lot of sleep. I wanted to change that. And it turns out, I can't remember exactly what your question was, but removing design from my job freed up a whole lot of sleep, attention to give to other people. Yeah. And so the smaller the crews got, the better we were at customer service. because I had one crew. As soon as I got one client to pay attention to, then it was great. I was no longer being pulled. Usually with the two crews, you have one great crew and you kind of let them do their thing and you don't pay attention enough. And the other crew you're a part of, And so when the crew that needed me a lot just kind of dissolved because people that used to work with us, who we trained up, going their different ways, raising their families in other parts of the country, where we supported all that. But then when we went down to one crew, it was great, just so good, because then I could be a part of everything, and the clients got all my attention.
In taking design out, do you miss design, or do you still feel like you're creative enough in other ways that you don't feel like that's missing?
Well, it was tough at first. It was tough at first because I did miss it. I missed it a lot. There was there was a creative part of it that just, it happened late at night, and it became, I started to not like it very much because of the timing of it. But the reality was I missed it. There was no chance of getting in a magazine or anything like that as a builder. It's all about the that's what's honored around, magazines, at least, is the creative process and the visual, the flowers and stuff like that. But what I was really into, which was space building and stuff and craftsmanship, that doesn't get the notoriety in the magazines. And at that point, I was still thinking about building my business, and I was like, oh, I'm really going to miss out on all this. But so I changed the way I thought about it. And I thought, okay, instead of building a landscape and devoting my time to that, I'm going to actually build the business. Like, I'm going to make this business work in a way that it just gives me something to do. So I spent the next couple of years focusing on how to make a good business. And that helped me let go of the design.
That's creative in its own right.
Right, exactly. There was something that it offered me that helped.
Yeah. Do you feel like with the designers that you work with, when you stopped offering design as a service, did that open up more opportunities to work with other designers?
Yes, absolutely. It did. In fact, that was the only way I was going to be able to work with other designers, because I just didn't have enough attention otherwise. And it didn't seem to fit with the way the flow of how I worked was going. Because you can't work at night too much with other designers as opposed to just the desk. But it had to be done. I think almost everything I've done with Avalon, you have to say no first before you can say yes to something else. And it's just super scary. But I kept getting myself into positions where I felt just comfortable enough to start saying no to things, which allowed me to really grow in the way I wanted to.
So do you feel like you've gotten to that? Obviously, balance is a constant evolution, but do you feel like you've gotten to that good kind of set point where you feel comfortable with workload and flow and business?
Yes.
With home life as well?
And it's been a few years now like that. As soon as we went from 2 crews to 1, the one crew is built with people that we've been working with, for years. And so we're a team now. We're a team we're all on the same page. We all know what we're trying to do. There's only a few of us now. But it's been, my lifestyle since then has been great. I'm not trying to change anything, just trying to get better at what we're doing now. We're not trying to grow. We're not trying to get smaller. We're just trying to make sure that the guys keep getting paid enough to live in Seattle. And this keeps working.
Well, I mean, you do beautiful work. So you're,
Thank you.
I would say, one of the most coveted construction companies for landscape in the Seattle area. And I know that there's a lot of us that would love to work with you and don't have that opportunity. Like I very rarely work in Seattle.
I know, it's because I put all these limits now, and it's all been for the benefit of our lifestyles. But it does make us a little bit kind of exclusive with working with everybody.
But I think that having the opportunity to say no to things and to really kind of keep your bubble small, makes life easier. I know for me, having more projects near me where I'm not having to spend an hour driving or stuck in traffic makes a huge difference for just my mental capacity and my ability to work with the people that I want to work with and not have to say no as often to really good projects that are close.
Right.
So it makes a big difference.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of saying no because it lets you say yes when you want to.
Yes. True. So what do you think is the key to the relationships that you've built with the designers that you work with? Because there's a handful of designers that you work with on repeat. What do you think is some of the key factors that help build those relationships?
I feel like I did something right when I joined APLD, and I made it a focus of trying to be helpful to people. Like, I just wanted to say, how can I help? Like, that was, I don't know if I read it somewhere or what, but the idea was to create a space where jobs would just come to me and I didn't have to go looking for them, because that's my job. My job is to get jobs. And that has not been my job for the last few years. The jobs just now happen. And I can just, I have to do other things to be productive. I can't just feel good about getting the jobs because now they just come. And that is freaking brilliant.
It's karma.
Well, it could be, but I also like to think that I probably built myself into this. And the way I did it was by making Avalon look attractive, and offering to do whatever we could to help somebody else out. And so my relationships with designers that are the best are who can help each other the most. Like if a designer comes to me and, let's say Lisa Bauer, Kevin, I got this project, here's all this stuff, and she just goes out of her way to make it easy on me. And so then I try to one up her. I just no, I need to make it easy on you. And so I'll just do everything I can to make it easy on her, and she repays that. And by the time we're done with that, we have a beautiful project and we love each other, So I think finding ways that I could contribute and be generous is how has built these relationships that just kind of run it back to me that way.
Well, I feel like that dynamic does nothing but just build and create a huge value and experience for the client.
Yeah, there's definitely that. A client gets the idea that, you can see how much I respect the designer, and I make sure that's visible too, because I think that helps me just by helping the designer. As soon as the client has complete trust in our ability to get stuff done and to do what she needs and to do it right and to look out for her, then the project is great. And with the good designer that I've been working with for a while, that happens before the project starts. Like the project with Lisa Bauer we have coming up that'll start in January. The client is like, okay, I trust you too. We've been doing this for months now. I've been working with these other contractors on all these problems, but every time I have a problem with you too, it's solved. It's already thought of. It's so they just have this trust, and so good. I need it, actually. I need there to be trust for me to enjoy what I'm doing.
There's not every designer is super involved in the installation process. As a designer, I feel like there's a huge value to that. But as an installer, what's your thoughts on the involvement or level of involvement of a designer through installation?
Right. So once the project starts, there is, speaking on behalf of the crew, it is nice if the designer's not even involved at all. If we have all the answers, boom, because all we want to do is build momentum. What we want to do is just get moving, and that's the only way we're going to make profit. There's two things that we're not going to sacrifice, and that is, one is the client's happiness. That's it. That's how we measure everything. If the project doesn't look so good, that's terrible. But if the project loses money, that's fine. If the client's unhappy, that's unheard of. That can't happen. And so the client has to be happy. And number two is it has to be beautiful and he loves it and it lasts forever kind of thing. And so as long as the client's happy, it's all good.
I think there's a huge value in that, but there's obviously a spectrum of being too involved and coming on site and changing their mind or adding things or changing. I mean, there's nothing that I despise more than change orders. And I assume you feel the same. And so I think that sometimes can be a tricky part of having a designer involved. But what things do you feel like having a designer involved adds to the value and the ease of your crews to be able to go through installation?
Right. So there are things that so I gave you the reasons why you wouldn't necessarily want a designer on board, but we demand it kind of. If not only because it helps the designer, because a big part of their income is going to be managing the project, but we want an interface between us and the client in anything that has to do with design or details. Like, we don't want to be talking to the client and say, oh yeah, what do you think about this? That's not our role. All we want to talk to and I need to have direct contact with the client to talk about scheduling and money. Those two things. Everything else, I want to go through the designer because I just want one answer. And so it always comes up. There's always something that comes up, and there's always many things that come up each week. And so we want to have access to the designer that can respond to us. And it's easy to see when something's coming up, and it's mostly around details. Oh, the corner of the bench. Oh, the gate latch and hinges. That kind of stuff. It's like we can anticipate it coming up. I can give plenty of time to the designer to get answers, but I don't want to go through the client. I want to go through the designer. So I have that in my contract, and it's on every bid. It's like, this is what we need a client for, or a designer for. Please hire them. If you don't, we're going to upcharge you by, all this wording is something I've been working on over the last couple of years. And when I first did it, I was like, we're going to upcharge you by 1%. That's not enough. It has to balance what the designer's charging too. And so now we're saying 5%, because if you hire a designer, they're typically, the ones we work with, are going to charge somewhere between 5 and 10% extra to project manage. And so I want it to be somewhere in that realm, maybe on the low end, but look, you're getting nothing and you're still paying. Hire the designer. It's going to make the project go so much better.
I found, especially with clients that need a high level of touch and information, one of the things that I can add value to my contractors is being that first step in communication, so that they don't have to communicate. And a lot of that is, most of the contractors I work with run multiple crews, so their time is spread even more thin. So being able to communicate, okay, this is what the next step is. This is when this is being brought in. This is when we need you to be available for the electrician to open up your garage, things like that, mm-hmm. that the contractor doesn't want to necessarily be sending those emails at midnight. Yeah. It'd be easier if he can call me or talk with me on site, and then I can be that communicator and make sure that the client gets that level of, not necessarily hand-holding, but level of communication and expectations met without having that tax the contractor.
Totally helpful. Yes.
And same with I do a lot of initial kind of prepping with the client so that they know what to expect, so that once we hit the ground, they kind of know the sequencing of events and know that it's going to look a lot worse before it starts to look better. And that I'll be on site working with the contractor, painting out the lines of the patio 3 or 4 times. And that if it doesn't look right, it's okay, because it's going to look right before it's done, so that they have, again, that kind of level of trust and expectation that nothing is done until it's
Which
done.
Is great. You're right. Good. We get the questions like, why is the path so big? And I was like, that's actually not the size that it will be, just the way we laid out the crushed rocket.
Yeah.
And so, having somebody interface with that is always helpful.
And client engagement obviously has a spectrum. Like, there's some that will just leave on vacation, be like, all right, I look forward to seeing it when we come back. And then there's others that are, looking through the window 8 hours a day and sending text messages and emails like, what's going on? What's next? Yeah. When is this getting delivered? Like, all kinds of questions. So I feel like that can be really challenging, especially when you've got a client that really needs a lot of information.
Yeah, no, that's when it's most helpful for sure. Yeah. When a client doesn't need much hand holding, it's still so helpful to have a designer there, because we don't have a good read on the client at that point. And so we're always like, are they happy? And so having a designer that is constantly informing them when we can't is really good.
Well, and I feel like once you've built a relationship with that designer, you speak kind of a mutual language where it's easy to know what their expectations are, and they know what they need to communicate or not communicate with you to make sure that the outcome that the client expects is there. And I think that's, to me, that's the biggest value point in having a good relationship with the contractor, is that mutual understanding of expectations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But that takes time. A lot of time, a lot of projects.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it does. But I mean, there should be expectations that you can throw out there right away. But mostly for us, it's like, if you're going to say you're going to do something, do it. And the designers we work with are good about that. And that's so important to me. Yeah. Do what you say you will, and I'm all right.
Yeah. I know going to one crew, that gives you a little bit more freedom in terms of scheduling. Recently, I've had projects that have been biggest challenge is doing permits. How is that in terms of scheduling when you've got the permit limbo, especially in Seattle? Seattle is challenging with permits.
Yeah, so we've been super lucky in that after when the pandemic hit, we got through that, and then like 6 months later, suddenly everybody wants to build their landscapes. And so once 2021 hit, we got booked out for months and months ahead of schedule. Like right now, we are booked out about 9 months ahead. And it was more than that before. In fact, I had a project that's kind of falling through that's supposed to go next fall. That'll probably be next winter instead. So I got like one little thing to fill up, but we're booked out pretty far, which means we can get ahead of the permit schedule. And that helped last year, where I was like, I'm not going to put a project, I'm not going to pen it in onto my schedule until we have permits in hand. And it took a year to get the permits. And I was like, whew, thank God, because we've been through that before the city got so backlogged that it was, to imagine something happening, you usually just go to the counter, and now you can't. And now there's the portal, so it's all new. But thank goodness we have enough pushed out in front of us that permits are waiting on them is okay, because we're waiting for our construction crew to free up to get to the next project.
Have you found over the last year, 2 years, that it's been more challenging to bid projects, knowing that they are going to be pushed out a long ways, and then with the giant fluctuation in material costs? Or do you just have something written in where once you're within a certain time frame of construction start, things get reevaluated?
That's a great question. Starting last spring, I started putting a note in saying material prices. Usually I can bid it, and I
within a comfortable margin.
Totally. I was like, whatever the price I got was what the price was going to be a year later. But now it's not that. And so I have this one little thing that says material prices are fluctuating. We're going to do anything. And I'll give you the list of all the steel and the wood and the concrete and the stone, that's going to change. We're going to track it for what it really is. Here's what the price is now. Here's what it might be. But right now, we're just giving the price now. And the project we've done on 2 projects so far went really well on one. The other one went even better because I overbid something. And so it just like suddenly we were like $3,000 to $4,000 ahead. And so then we just started chipping away at that, and it was great. By the time we got done, they had actually changed one other thing too. So it was like a $5,000 savings, which was supposed to be a $5,000 material inflation. And so tracking it worked out really well, because then the clients could just make different decisions and
set that expectation.
Yeah. But so far, we're also very lucky in that our clients are a little bit buffered from the immediate economy.
Right. You work a lot with steel more than most other landscape installers. Yeah. But what other materials, what are your favorite things to construct, or favorite materials to work with?
When we started Avalon in the late 90s, we did a lot of stonework. It was almost all stonework, and it was almost all natural rock, not rockeries, but just natural stones. Not a whole lot of stone that came on pallets. It was always bulk, and we just made it look natural. I mean, I came from the forest, and then I went to U of O, and so I didn't have an urban background, and so most of my aesthetic was nature and nature influenced. But then with the 2000s, suddenly this contemporary movement came along, and I started getting older too. So I wanted things a little, I think in my own brain, I want things a little tidier and squared up, And so as things went contemporary, we started doing more concrete and started introducing ourselves to steel. Always loved woodwork. Woodwork's a big thing. But so if I took those 4 things, stone, wood, concrete, and steel, I would say I have a real love for stone. But the guys who I kind of taught how to do a lot of stonework, most of the guys have left the company. And so Fraser and Jeremy, who are our crew, left. I mean, they're good with any material, but stone's not their first love. It's mine, but not theirs. They're good at it, but they want to, the stone is also, it's a craftsmanship thing that you just don't know what you're going to get until after it's done. You're like, oh, that's how it turned out. Phew, And so with, that doesn't appeal to a lot of people. It's nice to have just check boxes and know it's like, this is perfect. And so
instead of the puzzle with
yes,
no pattern.
Yeah. Like when I go to Marinacco's, it's always, I'm looking for stones, and it always works out. Like when I'm done, it's like, oh, that worked. But when I'm there, it's awful. It's like, how am I going to make this work? It's always settling on a stone. It's like, I'll settle on this one, and I have it all designed, but I'm like, it's all settling. And then when I finally get it in there, it looks good. And so I can see how stone is just difficult for people. So as we moved away from, or doing different things besides stone, first we started using more square stones and tightening, getting the stones tighter. But then we started doing more concrete, and concrete is its own special thing because it takes knowledge and it takes a personality to work with concrete. I can't stand it myself. Not a fan of concrete.
I lose a lot of sleep over concrete.
Because you can't fix it.
Yeah.
You get one shot, and however it turned out is how it turns out. And my personality, which is a struggle for me and especially a struggle for the crew, is I can't leave good enough alone. I get to something and I was like, ooh, that's 99% good. And I'll start messing with it and screw it up. So I battle that. And so concrete's a real chore for me. But Jeremy and Fraser are very good at it, even though we only do it a few times a year, which is the other problem, is that you do concrete, you do it and you get everything done and you realize, oh, I remembered 97 out of the 100 things I was supposed to remember. And so 3 of the things could have been better. And that happens with everything that you only do a few times a year. And concrete's one of those. We have all our own, it takes all its own tools and stuff. It's crazy. And it's hard to work with concrete contractors because they're all kind of intimidating and just want to do their own thing on their own schedule, their own
special
time.
Breed of people in themselves.
Yeah, because you see, these guys have to deal with stress every day. And so the way they manage that, I don't know. They have their own ways of doing it, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
And so we do it because we have to nowadays, but we're not big fans. I mean, it's finished concrete, I should say. If it's rat slabs or walls, or you can, beautiful.
That cuts the stress level, especially with unpredictability of weather, and finished concrete is just
and nowadays you don't even know where you're going to get your concrete from, and so what this quality is going to be. So that's concrete. Woodwork, probably our favorite thing to do for anybody. There's just something about, first of all, you're not dirty. You just get up off the ground, which is great for our industry, especially in the wintertime. But there's also, all the tools that deal with woodworking are all kind of like, you feel like you're, you got your gun, you got your hammer, and it all feels like I don't know, like it's almost like a sport or like a gunslinger. I don't know. But there's something about the whole working with the tools and the drills and the saws. It's really pleasant. And the smell of the wood. And then steel, this is something we taught ourselves how to do. Fraser loves it. He wants to do all the steel. He does all the welding. We put him through classes. So he's in learning all about steel finishing, even all we've had is failures on that, but he's learning about it, and so someday we might be able to do it well. But right now we're just like, no, we don't know how to do it yet, guys. But steel's fun. The issue with steel is that there's just not a whole lot of information out there on how long it's going to last. Like, I'm pretty sure all of our block and stone walls are going to last for a long time. The wood lasts as long as the wood can, but steel, I don't know how long it's going to last. We're putting a whole lot of 1/4-inch plate in, and it's just raw, mild steel, and we put good drainage behind it, but no one's ever shown me a 30-year-old wall that I could go look at and say, oh, that's how it works.
Right.
So I'm hoping for the best. We're doing everything the best we can. We're thinking it through. We're like, okay, hopefully this works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of things are like that anyways, but
yeah, wood especially, which woods are going to last longer, but
Are there any materials or any skills that you are looking to add to your repertoire?
Only as demand requires it, because we like to do everything in-house. If we can get away with no subcontractors, that's great just for scheduling. Because, I mean, our goal being keep the client happy. You start messing with the schedule with subcontractors, it kind of messes with all of our control over keeping the client happy.
Yeah.
And so we try to do everything ourselves. And the things we can't do right now were ornamental ironwork. Although we're doing it. We're starting like this
working
project.
on it.
Yeah, we're putting in the handrails and the guardrails of the steps and stuff. And so that may be a thing where we no longer say we can't do anymore. And then large concrete flat work like driveways or lots of steps. You got to know what you're doing to get, more than 4 steps done at once kind of thing. And so, and those aren't things we want to get. The concrete thing isn't something we want to get better at. It's like, if we come with more, we'll just have to hire somebody or to say that's not the right project for us, because we can do that now. We're fortunate enough to be like, you know what, this is too much concrete in the project for us. This is probably better to go with somebody else. So we're really fortunate that way. Yeah, mostly we're thinking about vertical surfaces when we start talking about things you notice. You can see a cool patio once in a while, but for the most part, the things you walk on aren't as cool as the things that are retaining and blocking.
Right. So. What about like green walls and green roofs? Is that something you've done much of? I know there's a lot of it in Seattle, but
I've failed at least a half a dozen times.
That's how you learn.
Yeah. We've done one green roof back in 2011, and we helped install it because we just didn't know what we were doing. And in fact, if I had to do it again, we wouldn't even have helped. We would have just watched, because it all went wrong. All we did, we put the irrigation in and we did what we thought we had to. And we helped with some drainage. But the people who actually put in the flats of green roofing, it just doesn't work sometimes. It just all became weeds, and the irrigation wasn't exactly what it should have been. It should have been run a little more regularly, kind of thing. And so there's just so much we didn't know about it that I'm so glad that we didn't get caught up in trying to fix everything that went wrong. And so that was a good lesson in, if I'm going to do something new, let's see if I can watch it first, come around from the edges a little bit and then dive in. And so that was our green roof experience. Green walls, I put in a green wall. It did okay. It was facing east, and it had a lot of issues, but the homeowner worked with it. So we did another one that was facing west. It lasted one season and just dried out. We tried to get it to go another season, just complete failure. We did something else. We got rid of it, put something else in for that client. So that was 2. That was one okay, one strike. And then I put another one in at my house. It's making a mess all over. I redid that with some trays. And then I just did another one for a client who's been a client for a long time. And I'm warning her, like, we don't know what we're doing. This is my best guess at how we're going to make this thing work. And we did this freestanding steel thing with aluminum trays, powder coated in black, put all this irrigation and soil and drainage in. And it looks great right now. We'll see how it goes through the winter. We'll see how the watering goes through next summer. But if I had to do it again, I would have probably done it differently as well. There's so much, I don't know.
Even bigger learning curve than concrete.
Yes, because there's no one to ask, really. I mean, the ones that look the best are the ones that you can buy that have the cells, like the 1 gallon things that you hook on trays, because that answers all the questions except how does it look? And it doesn't look very good.
Yeah.
but everything else, you can replace plants. The irrigation is there. There's enough soil to make a plant get through the summer, but it just looks terrible. And so, except for at the Amazon spheres where they have enough foliage to cover all that.
And maintenance.
Yeah. Right.
I find that those things are, a lot of it is hinging on maintenance and clients that are willing to either hire it or be engaged enough to, any garden. I mean, even you go back a year later and some gardens look beautiful and are really well maintained and loved, and others you're looking around at the weeds going, oh my gosh.
I know. but now you say that green roofs, green walls are something that I'm going to continue to try. Yeah. Even if it's just for, when I retire, I just love the idea of that being, there's just, you can make a wall look really good if you have plants to work with.
Yeah. Well, especially in Seattle, you work in a lot of smaller spaces. So really maximizing every square inch, being able to go vertically gives you a lot more opportunity, where, a lot of my projects are, an acre or more. So
Right.
You wouldn't, there's not as much call for, really maximizing every square
Right.
inch as much as there is in, smaller lots. So,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. There is a space, there is a place for green walls in Seattle. In those small ones.
so to circle back to working with designers and how that process and evolution comes about when you are at what point are you brought into the design process? Is it once the design is complete, or are you engaged in helping with budgets and that throughout the process to kind of
Right.
maintain that expectation all along?
Since we're booked out so far, designers that we work with now are trying to get on like, okay, I have a project that's good fit for you. I need to do a little bit more design on it, but then I want you to get in here and have a look at it and see if it's the right fit, because then I want to be getting on your schedule. And so as soon as there's a concept plan, I would love to get involved at that point, just to give a ballpark estimate, to say, okay, here's what you want to do. Okay, and these are all the elements. Okay, I'm going to put together a total comprehensive, scope of work, and just throw typical square foot costs at them. And then it comes up. And so a typical project for us is somewhere between 200 and 300,000 or so. And so, we come up and it says, okay, 250. It's like, is that what the client wanted? And they're like, oh yeah, that's kind of what they had in mind. And so then the designer goes back with this idea that they can design exactly what they've already had in mind, or not. If the client says, oh, I want to cut some things out. But that happens all before they do anything more than concept plan, because then they can go forward confidently, like, okay, I'm designing something that's going to get built. And then I can put them on the schedule saying they're designing something that's going to get built, and I'll even overprice my ballparks, just because I don't want to put somebody in my schedule that's going to pull out later.
Right.
And so I need to make sure and so I will say, it could be as much as this. Like, oh, that's fine. Okay, then.
Yeah.
Then we're working together, and it's just a matter of you figure out, with the designer what you want to build, and I'll just price it.
Well, I think, as a designer, is really helpful in having that gut check of, yes, we're in the right spot, keep moving forward, or having the opposite conversation of, okay, it's going to be more than what you have budgeted. These are the things that either you have to sacrifice or do later, or change material options, things like that. But then also on a contractor's end, it's nice to kind of know what you have in the queue coming up.
Yeah. And my whole point of that is just to remove uncertainty. For me, I want something to build. I'm just filling up my schedule, right? That's my job. Get the next job. So that removes uncertainty for me. For the client, they want to know how much it's going to cost. Give them that certainty, and the designer wants to know what to design. Because otherwise, I'll be spiraling with the designer. Like, well, she doesn't like, I don't know if she wants to spend this. Like, ask.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
Yeah.
Tell me what you want. I'll price it. I'll put it in front of her and see if she likes it. And if the client likes it, great. We're doing it. So yeah, just remove the uncertainty. That's the goal.
Yeah. I think it's helpful for everybody. And I feel like it makes the experience for the client so much better, knowing ahead of time, instead of have a design that they fall in love with that, they're thinking is going to be 100,000. That's actually 200,000.
Right.
And then they're disappointed.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to kind of backtrack and salvage something of the design that they love, even though they can only get half of it.
Yeah.
So that's
so I'm brought in, at the concept stage, and then I'm just, questions are bounced all the time between then and when I finally bid, when the master plan is done.
So lastly, before I let you go, what is your favorite part of your job?
My least favorite part of my job is bidding, because the uncertainty. I'm guessing, just guessing. But I'm pretty good at it, and so it's not terrible, but I don't look forward to it. My favorite part is getting in the truck and driving to the job site. Just, because nowadays I'm not digging the ditches so much anymore when I go and work on the job sites, because I feel like working. So it's like, oh, I want to get out there and do some work, and so I love it. Like the other day, I was driving to work, and I kind of checked in with myself. It's like, why am I enjoying driving to work right now? It's like, oh, I'm looking forward to it. This, it's great. But then as soon as I have to go do a bid, I'm like, I don't want to. But yeah, just being on the job site and hanging out with Fraser and Jeremy and building something that we know is going to look great. Yeah. That's my favorite part.
Well, I think part of it is getting outside too. When
Must
I
be,
spend too
yeah.
much time at my desk, I start to get a little stir
Yeah.
crazy and I need to get outside. And
Yeah.
so plant shopping, plant set days,
Oh,
always
You're right. Going to the nursery days are great, but just having somewhere to go is nice.
Yeah.
Get off the computer, off the desk.
Yeah. Out of the house.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for doing
welcome.
this. This was fantastic.
No, I had a great time.
I appreciate all your insight
and
look forward to talking again, hopefully soon.
Okay. Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you so much, Kevin. That was fantastic. I know everyone that listens is really going to love the conversation and be inspired. A couple takeaways that I think are really valuable to point out is the conversation about getting good at saying no really opens up opportunities for you to say yes to things that you really want to say yes to. And then building relationships with other designers just by being helpful and putting yourself out there and adding value to what they do, in turn, adds value to both of you. And then building trust, which again kind of circles back to that being helpful. Building trust amongst the people that you work with helps build trust amongst your clients so that everyone can deliver a better product. Also, you did mention Lisa Bauer a couple times. She is fantastic and an amazing designer. And to give a little teaser to everyone that's listening, I have an episode coming up where I get a chance to talk to Lisa. So you'll get to hear from her as well. So stay tuned. Make sure to look at Kevin's work. His website is avalonnw.com, and you can find him on social media at Avalon NW. He does fantastic work, and you can see some of the materials that he's talked about, some of the woodworking, and especially some of the really interesting steel that he's used in his projects. To wrap up, I want to thank you for your time. I hope the ideas discussed today have left you feeling excited and energized. As I build both my business and my life, I value the support and feedback you provide. I would love for you to reach out to me to let me know what you think, give me ideas, or just to connect. Please don't forget to subscribe and also share with a friend. Until next time, go create something wonderful.